You're right. Let's just take a quick photo of you as well, just for the thumbnail for the video. Do you want to move your head to the left? 'Cause you're just in the light. That's it. That's it. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Just doesn't get the camera started and then
Okay.
obviously microphones there, there's a box of water there. Bring it up a bit. Should be on. Should be on just. Here's my official photographer again. It's not a paid role. You know?
Move it out to the right of it.
It's just exactly.
Oh yeah, they're floating.
Ready when you're ready? Okay.
Okay, everybody, we will get started. Welcome back to day 2 of the talks at Crash Live 2025. I don't know quite how you follow the Spectrum show, but we'll give it a go. I am that person there, Mike James, from the Retro Gaming Roundup podcast. We put out a show, at least one every month since February 2009. I'm the author of Smoke and Mirrors, a book about the retro VGS and Coleco Chameleon consoles. Available in all good bookshops and some shady ones too. I'm also a volunteer at the Northwest Computer Museum, and we've got some merch. Chris has given me permission to give these out. Also, there's this poster which is available at the end. These are available signed if you want, and anyone who buys one will also throw in a free bookmark for you from the Northwest Computer Museum. Can't see fairer than that. So, enough about me. We're here to be regaled by our esteemed guest. If the internet's to be believed, born in Stockport in 1969, he apparently drew the graphics for his first game at age 15 and has been involved in, or responsible for, many games since then. Big round of applause, please, for Mr. Steve Pickford.
I was just saying what to say before I started. I was a little bit nervous because so much of this Spectrum stuff is getting on for 40 years ago, and I'm not sure how much I remember of it all.
Just
So,
tilt the microphone.
Yeah, if there's going to be a few gaps in the stories.
We're going to try and fill some in, but it is Sunday, but are we using Sunday names? Is it Stephen, Steve, is it Steve? What are we good with?
Steve, the reason is, at my age, Stephen was the most popular name
Right.
of kids who were born at my... So I was at school with about 5 or 6 other
Right.
Stephens, so we all had to differentiate ourselves. Somehow I ended up with Steve rather than Steve or Stevie or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just kind of stuck.
So before we go back to the good old days, you were just saying there you're a bit nervous, maybe things get a bit foggy, but you're saying you're not really active in this kind of scene at the moment. But
Not really,
what do you
no.
think about all this attention in, things you were doing 40 years ago?
It's very odd. I spoke to my daughters and said I'm away for the weekend to be slightly famous for a couple of days, and then I'm going to go back to normal life. And it makes you think about people who are genuinely famous, and this is their life all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it was quite nice to have a little tiny taste of it, and people come and tap you on the shoulder and ask you to sign things.
Yeah,
Quite
you
nice.
might get used to it for a weekend.
Yeah, but then I'll go back to normality and enjoy that.
Yeah. So there's some of your work on display there. So you started as a comic book designer, I believe. But when and where did that interest and skill come from?
I think what it was, I always wanted to be a comic artist. That was like my ambition as a kid, not to be doing video games. Finished school at 16, and I planned to go to art college and sort of pursue that path. And I got this opportunity to work at a game development studio doing loading screens for a bit, and I'd done work experience there, and I had a bit of money in my pocket, and I thought, you know what, I'll take a year off after school instead of going straight to college, and I'll work at this place, I'll get paid every week, I'll mess about on computers, and then I'll go to college after earning a bit of money. And it's never happened.
Yeah,
so,
you're still waiting to go back.
This is like a sort of a little, what's the word, gap year job.
Yeah.
That I'm still doing
sabbatical. So when you were kids, your brother John had a Spectrum, and I presume you played games on it initially, and then at some point that turned into tinkering and playing around with, writing things. How did that come
Definitely my
about?
brother more than me. Like I say, I was just into drawing and wanted to draw all the time. He bought a ZX81, I got one for Christmas one year, started programming on it, and really, really wanted a Spectrum. And we had a big jar in the house that he'd set up that was John's ZX Spectrum fund.
Right.
It was probably that he couldn't really afford it, and it was sort of like dropping like 10p's in it. And what was the Spectrum? Was it like 120 quid or something when it came out?
I can't remember what it was at launch, but
something like that. And I think
they were constantly fighting with prices.
yeah,
weren't
well,
they?
over the year, I think it got up to like 60 quid in this jar, and he was sort of a bit disappointed. My parents put the rest and got him one for Christmas in, was it 82?
Yeah.
So we got the Spectrum in 82. He was always programming, and I did a bit of programming. He wrote a graphics editor program that I was using. I was like, oh, this is great, thanks, John. And I spent ages drawing loading screens on the Spectrum for games that was nothing to do with. I would just read Crash and find an advert for a game that I really liked, and then try and make a loading screen of that. Like
Something like that.
something like that. But that's a real one. The ones I did never. I don't have copies of them. The
Right.
cassettes
Long
that
gone.
have gone in the bin. And I just spent hours doing that. But John wrote a game. He wrote a text adventure called Ghost Town, all in BASIC. Sent it off, and it got picked up by Virgin, so it was one of the first batch of Virgin Games releases. And he didn't ask me to do the graphics for it. It's just some like vector graphic image. Mike was saying yesterday, Mike had his family involved a little bit, like, oh, Tim, you do the music from it, but my brother didn't do that. He said he thought it would be cheating if somebody else did something on the game. So he got this game published, got 500 quid for it. It was quite a lot. I guess he was in sixth form, so I think he was like 17 at the time. And he was at school, and one of the teachers came up to him and said, oh, I believe you won some money for making a game, and he was so annoyed at that. I earned some money, but that was him away. And there's a story about that he, again, listening to Mike's talk yesterday, he was talking about how so many games at the time were just copies of arcade games. That's just kind of what people did. And he made this text adventure, but he just copied it from another text adventure, like the same story, the same puzzles and everything. And in the same spirit of like just making a clone of Space Invaders, that's what he was making a clone of this adventure he quite liked, but it got published. And then about 6 months later, Virgin sent forwarded this solicitor's letter they got from the publisher of the other. They were like, oh, I didn't realise you weren't supposed to do that. But I think for him, right early on, it made him dead sort of vigilant about not copying things, because he kind of realised he was absolutely in the wrong with what he'd done the first time.
Yeah.
And it sort of set him on a kind of path of specialising in designing original games and trying to come up with new game ideas and game concepts. So we were kind of really working hard on trying to do original games all along because of that first experience of doing exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah. So I mentioned to you earlier, the internet has some accurate information, some inaccurate information. So the timeline kind of jumps around a bit, what order you did things in. Yeah. But at some point, John was at Binary Designs, and that's where I think you did your work experience, and then that turned into a full-time role. So how did that come about? And that was, I think, one of your first days, or the first day there? Yeah, well, that was when I first started work, but I did work experience, so I guess this would have been
'86 or '85, I think, when I was 15. And I got a week's work experience there, and I thought, brilliant, because I could just mess about on computers, you know. And they asked me to do a loading screen for a game, can't remember which one. So I sat there, dead happy, and I was in this office, and I got taken out for pizza on my first day. I was like, oh, this is brilliant.
Exotic.
So did this loading screen, and said, oh, that's quite good, we'll use that. Right, we've got another one for you. And I think I did 3 in this week. And at the end of the week, they said, can you get another week doing work experience? And I was like, is that allowed? Because phoned at the school, I can have 2 weeks. Brilliant, 2 weeks off school. So I stayed for another week, did a few more. And you're not supposed to get paid for work experience, and the boss paid me 50 quid.
Right.
So I was like, this is...
It's half a spectrum, nearly.
Yeah. Well, it all went on comics, but it was 50 quid, I was absolutely buzzing. So they said, this is how I ended up working there. So they said, when you finish school, which would have been about 6 months away, there's a job here if you want it. So that's why when I was thinking of going to college, you know, I'm going to have that. I'll take that job they offered me just for the year.
Yeah.
My first day, so this would have been like June '86, just finished my O-levels and started work. And they said, right, we've got this darts game. And basically that was the level of direction you got. Do a darts game. So there was me, an artist. It was what they did at Binary Design. Even then, it was quite sort of professionalish and regimented. They had about 5 or 6 games on the go, and they'd have 3 desks with 3 programmers sat on them in a little island, and one would be the Spectrum program, the Amstrad programmer, and the C64 programmer, all working on a game. And then another 3 desks, the same, working on another game. And at the end of the room, there was me and another guy with the 2 artists, and David Whittaker, the musician, as a little team. And we were doing the graphics and the music for all the rest of I think there's about 5 or 6 of these islands teams. So there's 3 guys, right, you guys are doing the darts game, Steve, you're doing the graphics. And then, oh, right.
Yeah.
Let's get on with it.
So what was your kind of working practice then? Were you drawing on paper or
No.
ink, or were you doing it straight away digitally, or was someone converting what you'd drawn?
Straight digital using the Spectrum onto the Spectrum. I was quite fortunate straight away. I think the reason the first game I did, this darts game, looked quite good is my brother had written a really nice graphics editor on the Spectrum that he read about Windows, or sort of, I think the Apple Lisa machine or Liza or whatever. He'd read about that in magazines and seen his concepts of Windows. He's like, oh, I wonder if I could write that. And he wrote a little Windows system on the Spectrum that popped up Windows with different things happening in them, and wrote a little graphics editor that was an animated sprite editor, and you could draw sprites at any size, any number of frames of animation, draw them a bit, play it. And at the time, it was like a really, really nice system. So I got that on my first day, and so I started drawing the hand, but I was drawing it, using my 2 hands on the Spectrum keyboard, but drawing my own hands, trying to sort of draw like that, and then move the cursor a bit. But I was just sat, it probably took about 2 days, just sat there like that. So that's my. I used to, a few times I met people in the pub, or when I was a bit younger, and they said, oh, you mentioned 180, I said, oh, I did the hand for that. And they went, no way. And I'd go,
look, it's
like that. And when they looked at it, they went, oh my God, yeah, it is. I don't know if the hands changed now.
So you were carrying on design work there, and again the internet says at some point you managed the sound and music department. Is that true, and how did that come about? Was there no one else there? I mean,
there's one other story about 180 I've just remembered. It wasn't just me, there was another lad called Jess, and I did the dartboard and the hand, and the other lad Jez did the pub scene and the characters, so I didn't do those bits. But I was 16, he was 17. Neither of us had been in a pub.
Honest.
Well, they joined this pub, and it was like with the most unqualified people to draw a pub.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
were you
we
involved
see
in
that.
sound and music or
No, what happened was, as I say, it was like at the time there was programming teams working on games, and then sound and music was kind of a separate department that was just feeding the teams actually making the games. And I guess it was like, I'd only been there 6 months. This is bizarre how fast moving it was. And I think I'd just turned 17. David Whittaker left and moved on, and I was the most senior person left in this little team about this. So the 17-year-old who'd been there 6 months was put in charge of the sound and music department, and I had to interview people coming for jobs. People like older than me, way more experienced than me, and I'm like really shy. What have you done then? So, but I didn't. It moved really fast. I can't think I was sort of running it for very long.
No.
Because then we left, and me, my brother, and 2 other programmers from there left to set up a studio because we were.
Was this
sick.
Zippo Games?
That's right. We were sick of working on the Spectrum, and we wanted to work on these exciting 16-bit machines. Although we set the studio up specifically to work on the Amiga and the ST because we were getting exciting at the time, and then we fell into working with Rare on NES games. And the NES was so primitive; it was sort of going back 3 generations to work on the most primitive machine ever made.
So I'm guessing by this point you money wasn't, you weren't rich by any means, but you had an income. But how did the whole I'm not going to college, I'm going to write video games go down in the Pickford household? Was it a problem? Was it just go and do it or whatever?
I mean, my mum and dad weren't going to stop me doing anything, but they weren't happy really. I mean, my dad was a scaffolder, and he'd always said, get a trade, get a trade, what you doing, get a trade. So he wasn't happy that I wanted to draw comics, because that was stupid.
Right.
And he definitely wasn't happy that we wanted to make bloody stupid computer games. Bloody hell, when are you going to get bored of that kind of thing? But it just kept rolling along. I mean, we had a job, we were getting paid, so we couldn't complain too much. I must admit, there's been a couple of times when I've looked back and I thought he's probably right. I probably should. It would have been better.
Might need a proper job.
If I could, do a bit of bricklaying or something. I always have work available.
So this is some of the Zippo stuff, but you'd also, previous to this, I think you'd done Zub, Glider Rider. You were mentioning Glider Rider before in the remake you got
in
for
fact,
that.
Glider Rider was just before my time. I think I did the loading screen and the font for it, but that had started before I'd started work, and it was just underway.
But they got an interesting remake for the game.
Yeah, no, the way Glider Rider came about was the boss of Quicksilver, I've forgotten his name, he'd sort of sent an edict down to the studio because we were doing games for them, saying, I want a flight simulator, a hang gliding flight simulator, because they were playing flight simulators out. I think he probably just had a weekend away, going on a hang glider, and thought, that's what I want. So it's, a hang gliding flight simulator. Right, John, make that. And John said, he had scratched his head, he goes, I can't write that. I don't know all the 3D and the maths. I can't write a flight simulator. What can I do? So he basically invented the Glider Rider game as a way of getting out of writing a flight simulator.
Right.
Which, for anyone who hasn't played it, it's a bizarre idea. If you're riding a motorbike up and down hills and the motorbike turns into a hang glider and flies around for a bit. But
so what kind
not a
of
flight simulator.
What kind of remix were you getting around that time? Were they all quite, vague like that? Were you given very strict instructions on some? And
well,
you mentioned working on the different systems at the time. What were your kind of considerations for each one?
I think we got a few, like 180 was just make a darts game. We had a couple of arcade conversions, like Motos was an arcade machine that we did. But at that time, that's when I mentioned my brother was kind of stung by this ripping off the text adventure. He was like, we should be coming up with our own game ideas. So he basically started kind of trying to invent the game idea himself. and go to the boss and say, let's make this game, let's make that game. So the first one he came up with that wasn't the game he was working on was Feud. So he wrote like a one-page concept of this idea of two wizards running around collecting herbs and having battle. I drew a map of it, and then we went to our boss and said, this is a game we should make, but I'll sell you this game idea. And I think he convinced the boss to pay him a few £100.
Right.
And then he made Feud. And then we did Amarot and Zub, sort of in the same way that, like, my brother in his own time came up with an idea, then sort of pitched it to the boss, let's make this game. So we were sort of doing this idea of designing original games and trying to sell the concept and make it alongside at the studio things like arcade conversions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you mentioned Amarok before. You might have been trying to be a bit too clever with the name and the premise. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is John's idea, not mine really, but we came up with this game Amarok that's like ants attacking this, probably ripping off Ant Attack, but insects attacking this city in isometric, and you're running around shooting them. And the name of the game is the capital city of Utopia from the sort of 300-year-old novel, which, you know, thinking we're really clever and sort of intellectual, and, you know, that'll get people scratching the chin and appreciating our how erudite we are. And it sold. It was quite a good game. It sold fuck all. Nobody knew what it was. It had this unpronounceable word on the cover, and it didn't stand out. And we knew the Tatlock brothers, who again Mike had mentioned yesterday, and they'd done a game about a similar time as us called Agent X, and that wasn't a brilliant game, but it sold pretty well. And it's because it was called Agent X. It told you exactly what the game was, and we were talking like, God, we were so stupid. We should have called it, you know, like Ant City or something like that, and everyone would have known what it was.
Yeah.
We were trying to be too clever with our names, so yeah, lesson learned. All these lessons, you can't work them out sort of intellectually. You've got to actually make the mistake and feel the pain. And that's how you. That's how you sort of internalise it, get it right for the next time.
So obviously yourself and your brother were moving around and sometimes working together, sometimes not, and you're constantly sort of in each other's company and professionally as well. But was it healthy competition between you? Was there sibling rivalry? Were there any arguments down the road?
There were definitely arguments, but not rivalry, because we just formed quite a good team. Because he was a programmer, and although I say call myself game designer, I never really came up with like blank page ideas. But he'd come up with, right, I've got a concept from nowhere, this is what the game should be. And I would be quite good at developing and filling in the gaps and fleshing out the design idea. He would do the coding, I would do the graphics. So we were a pretty good semi-self-sufficient team. And the only thing we were missing is a third brother who could do music, which we never had. But it's always been, I mean, we've had arguments about the work time and time again, but never any rivalry, because we were both doing different parts of the job and fitting together. And it's real. I mean, there's a few people, and there still are now, who can do the whole job themselves self-sufficiently, who can code, do graphics and that. And they're, you know, they're geniuses, and they're brilliant, and we work quite at that level. But having a pair that can work together and make a full game is really handy, because
you reach half a genius.
Exactly. I'll take that. But because you're not so reliant on finding someone else to finish it off.
So you mentioned a little earlier the Amiga and the ST, and up here we've got some NES stuff. And
that was after we started the studio with 3 game concepts. Cosmic Pirate, which was finished and came out on the Atari ST and Amiga for Palace. That was alright. Kind of feel like I should go back, and if we could at the time we'd go back and redo that game and make it better. But we were quite proud of that. We had 2 other games. So again, me the artist and 3 other people set the studio up, 3 programmers, so it was like a game each. Cosmic Pirate was my brother's. There was a guy called Jim who joined us, and we had a game for him called Cluster that was for Signosis, and he signed up with them. And he left. He got fed up after 6 months and left, so that got cancelled. And we had another game called Road Hug, which was an Amiga driving game that was quite good actually, and that got halfway through. That was signed up with Mastertronic, and then we met Rare, got in touch with Rare, and they invited us to start doing this NES stuff. And the client was being crap with Road Hug, so that got sacked off. So we only ever made one 16-bit game, I think.
Right.
And then we just switched to doing NES stuff.
So
for
tell
Rare.
us about that transition from 8 to 16-bit and onto consoles. Did that extra power help or hinder your creativity? How did that
It
all
was
work?
really interesting because we thought we were really good at games by this point. We'd been making them like 2 or 3 years. We're like, we know what we're doing. We're game design geniuses kind of thing. And we got in touch with Rare, and they showed us this NES, and we're like, this is garbage. This is such a piece of shit, you know. And we got excited by the Amiga and the ST because more colours, higher resolution, we can make better graphics, we can make things look good. And we were looking at these NES games, these just look like shit. You know, why would we want to work on that machine? And the stampers at Rare were saying, you've got it wrong. We're going to give you one, and we're going to give you these games, go and play them. Oh my God, these games are like 10 times better than anything we were doing. I think we had that sort of arcade game mentality of you make a game and then every level it goes a little bit harder until at some point, presumably it crashes, I don't know, because no one could get that far. And you sort of didn't always worry about it. It was like, well, that's someone else's problem. If it goes a bit faster every level, I don't know, I could only play 3, presumably someone can play 4. And then these NES games, they were like 40 quid at the time, even in 1986, they were 40 quid. How you can afford that? And we realised Nintendo's approach was, this could be someone's only game they get in a year or in 6 months. It's got to be 40 quid's worth of entertainment for them. They've got to be able to play
And
to
get
the
the seal
end.
of approval.
Yeah, and at the time, it was it wasn't just a marketing thing, and it totally opened our eyes. We realised that we knew nothing about game design. We were complete idiots. These games that looked like shit were actually 10 times better than the games we were making in terms of gameplay and mechanics and thinking about the player's experience, which we sort of didn't do. Like a lot of the games were really just, our games were kind of just technical show-off things. Like we had an idea for programming something a certain way or making the screen scroll fast in a certain way or something like that, and you just build a game, and it was really to show off to the other programmers or the other artists how good you were. You weren't really thinking about the player, and the NES stuff made us realise that, hang on, the player's quite important. So it was almost like a year zero kind of thing for us, that we realised we knew nothing and had to start again. And Rare were great at helping us and teaching us, showing us things, and look at this game, look at that game, start from scratch and try and learn how to design games.
Yeah. So this was contract work, like you said. Was this a lot more keeping in between the lines, where you said, this is what you need to do, go away and do it? And was it positive? Was it restrictive or lucrative? All three?
It wasn't lucrative.
No.
It was lucrative for Rare,
Yeah.
but they paid us so badly. We were just a bit too young and naive to realise how much money there was being made and what a small slice of it was coming our way. But Rare was still they still had quite an old-fashioned attitude, in a good way, of as game developers, you just get a quite simple idea, just go away and do it. Or we would come up with an idea and say to them, we've got this idea for a game. So the first thing we did for them was Iron Sword, which is a sequel to their game, Wizards and Warriors, and they just said, right, do another one, do a follow-up to it. I mean, we had to write a spec and show it them, but not really much direction, just like, you guys do what you want. But then you go through the Nintendo testing process, and there was like a whole heap of rules and things you can't do, and you had to get a sort of a score at the end from Nintendo's testers saying this isn't good enough, or you know, that kind of thing. So there's sort of a kind of narrow quality control filter that you had to get through. It was quite difficult. You get a score at the end out of 40 from Nintendo themselves. What was interesting was the NES was doing really, really well, and every game that came out was making the publishers millions. But Nintendo would limit how many slots the publishers had. So you might get a publisher license and you could publish like 3 games a year or 2 games a year. Every game got an internal score by Nintendo's testers out of 40, and I think it was either over 30 or over 35 or something like that. If you got over a certain score, it didn't count in your slot. So you could publish as many brilliant games as you want.
Or 3 crap ones.
Or 3 crap ones, yeah. And I thought, that's a really clever bit of design. So even the publishers we were working for were sort of, it forced them to pressure us to try and make a high quality game. And if you put a game through that got like, I think Solar Jetman did, whatever the threshold was, that was a company called Trade West. That got over the threshold, well, so Nintendo was like, doesn't count towards one of your slots, you can publish another game, so free money, you know.
Yeah, free money. So at some point, Zippo were bought out by Rare at 1990, I think. Is that how it worked? And how did that come about, and how did you view it at the time and now, maybe?
Basically, they starved us to death, really. It was sort of, technically they bought us out, but basically they were paying us so little that we could barely afford to keep going. We tried to keep going, and then you could see that we were going to go into debt, and basically we sold our company to them for 0 so that they take over the wage bill and we could keep going. So we were just not very good businessmen, really.
Right.
So we went from being a studio contractor to Rare, doing games for them, to being employees of Rare. We became Rare Manchester. Oh, the culture change was so instant and horrible that while we were the contractor, we'd go down every fortnight or so for meetings, and they treated us dead well down there. They were lovely at the farmhouse in Twycross, and come here now, how are you doing, lads? And we'd sit there for an hour just chatting about games, and they'd be telling us things that had happened in Japan, and they'd be giving us loads of sort of gossip about what's going on in the console world, and Jellicoe were trying to buy this and stuff like that. You felt like dead important and dead connected and stuff. And then when we became Rare Manchester, literally overnight, never saw them again. And we'd get like edicts through the faxes coming through saying nobody's allowed to have music playing at their desk. Because someone at Twycross had played the music too loud and pissed someone off. So it become a company-wide edict that this can't happen. And we're in our little studio in Manchester going, fuck off. Suddenly we were just like the bottom of the pile because we were just employees of Rare. So it didn't last very long.
No, I was going to say, you was it John who left first, and then again you followed him to, was it Software Creations?
Yeah.
You went to next?
John. What happened with John was Rare contracted us to make a wrestling game on the Game Boy. It was when the Game Boy it hadn't actually come out in the West yet. They showed us the Game Boy. I remember they gave us a Game Boy before it was out over here.
Right.
And I played Tetris on a bus, and I was absolutely shitting myself. I think I've got to do it because this concept of a portable machine was new, and I'm going to have to try playing a video game on a bus. But at the same time, I was scared that someone was going to pinch it off me. And I sat on this bus. But so we were doing a wrestling game that he was programming, and he gave us the cartridge size, which was very small, and it was WWF licensed game, and they wanted 8 licensed wrestlers in it. So we did the sums, and we said, the cartridge isn't big enough to fit 8 wrestlers in, or not very well. Basically, if you put 8 different characters in, all they're going to have is a punch and a kick.
Right.
There's literally no space to do any more moves than that, which is rubbish for wrestling. We need you need more moves. You need a hold and a throw. just to get a wrestling game working, and we just said, do it. It needs 8. This is the cartridge size. It needs 8 characters.
Right.
Just do it. You know, that's your job. And we're like, but it'll be shit.
Yeah.
Just do it. So we did it, and it was a bit of a nightmare for John because he also wanted the connect between 2 Game
Link
Boys
cable, yeah.
for live 2 players play against each other, and it wasn't really designed for that. It was designed to send your Pokemon down, kind of thing, and it didn't. Basically, the Game Boys don't sync up very well live because they're battery powered. The timings are slightly off for all of them, so they go out of sync with each other, which is okay for a one-time sync up to send a Pokemon, but to keep a game running.
Yeah.
Oh, he had him and a programmer at Rare were working on it together, and I think the solution they ended up with was, because you have this system with systems like that, like one machine is, they call it the master, one's called the slave, that dictates what the timing is, and they had to swap which was master and slave every frame,
Right, okay.
just to balance out the constantly going out of time with each other. So we had a nightmare programming it. We finished it, it worked, and it was rubbish as predicted. And he got summoned down to the offices at Rare, like big important meeting. John sat there. He brought a tester in, and he said to the tester, right, you know, say your thing, and said, I've played this game, and it's one of the worst games I've ever played. It's terrible. All you can do is punch and kick. That's rubbish for a wrestling game. And John, he said, I wasn't there for this week. He said, he goes at the time, I had a big smile on my face. He's like, exactly what I told you. He thought he was going to get like a pat on the head for it's as bad as I said it was going to be. And what they said was, we're doubling the cartridge size now.
Right.
We want you to start from scratch and do it again with 4 moves per character. And he just said, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not going through this hell again on this game.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm sorry, John, you've let us down now. We're going to have to let you go. So, so basically, he was sacked for not rewriting the game again. They gave us, there was only 3 of us left after that Rare Manchester, and they gave us the job of doing the Beetlejuice game, the film Beetlejuice, game of that on the Game Boy. At this point, we were in a tiny office in Chorlton in Manchester, upstairs above the deli, if anyone remembers that. And we were all really depressed. It was going really badly. And we had a VHS, an American VHS machine, an American TV. So we couldn't, all it would play is the American VHS. We had 1 tape of Beetlejuice. And we were writing this game, it was going quite badly. And basically, and I'm not proud of this, but it's quite funny. Basically, every afternoon, we'd go downstairs to the shop, buy a bottle of Thunderbird, and just sit upstairs and watch Beetlejuice again, and get slightly drunk, and then go home. So the game was going really slowly because we were just working very well. And I can't watch the film Beetlejuice anymore. If I see an advert for it coming on TV, I get sort of PTSD. We must have watched it about 50 times, getting drunk on Thunderbird.
But so, from a bad experience to a good one then, because this game that's up here behind us, you've said in the past, you cite this as your greatest accomplishment, and there's a quote here. It's the first time Nintendo of America had ever contracted a third-party developer to write a game from scratch. You did it on time, under budget, and made a great job of the project. So, tell us about your crowning achievement.
It is. I'm so proud of it because, basically every project we did was late or broken, in some way or other. Even the games I'm proud of and everything, but this was like such an important project for the studio. As I say, even though we'd done games for Nintendo before, Nintendo of America made most of the money, but all the games came from Japan. Nintendo Japan made all the Nintendo games, and Nintendo of America wanted a bit of that action kind of thing. So this is the first time they ever commissioned a developer to make a game, and it was sort of quite a few people were after the gig sort of thing. We got the job, and at work it's like, this is so important. This is the most important project. You know, you're absolutely battered by how important this is. And we had quite a large team at the time. I think there was about 5 or 6 of us. There was Steve Woody and Kevin Edwards programming it, who've been mentioned a few times. Andrew Threlfall was one of the artists, along with, I was the lead artist, Threll, Chris Collins and maybe another, which was sort of the biggest team. It sounds pathetically small now, but at the time it was like the biggest team we'd had. And a producer who used to work at Nintendo had come over, and he was designing it and working with us on it. But like I said, we all just knuckled down and did a really, really good job, a really professional job. Made a great game, absolutely. You know, it's just, for what it is, it's brilliant. I was so proud of it. And then there's sort of 2 really awful follow-up stories. The first thing is, the reason it's Ken Griffey Jr. is at the time he was almost an unknown, but Nintendo had bought the Seattle Mariners baseball club,
Right.
and he was the Seattle Mariners star player, but not particularly a big star. Then we made the game, it came out, and that baseball season, he was suddenly became the star player, and he was having this amazing season. And you know, baseball's all like stats and numbers. All these numbers were like going up on this graph. It was just going to be a record-breaking season. You know, it was like having the David Beckham game at the height of David Beckham's fame. And we were like, is this good? We were saying to Nintendo, is this good? They're going, this is amazing. You know, guys, this is going to be absolutely amazing. And we'd also wangled a royalty bonus for the team. So we were getting a small cut of the royalties as a bonus. I think this was probably an incentive, because it wasn't the norm at the studio, but I think this must have been an incentive to make us do a good job.
Okay.
Hey man, we were all like working out, hang on, I'm actually going to get on this kind of thing. And the game came out, and by a certain point, it sold 500,000 copies. Fucking hell, this is great. We all got a bonus. I think I got about 3.5 or 4 grand or something. Anyway, that was a deposit on bought a house,
Yeah,
that was
right.
a deposit, absolutely buzzing. And the Nintendo guys are saying to us, this is nothing. Basically, your sales are like that, and at the end of the series, the World Series, and the sales are just going to go through the roof. Oh, we were just counting our money, before we had it. And what happened was, that year, we had a baseball strike in America, and the season stopped halfway through. Just imagine the whole season just stopped. And I still got it at home, a cover of Time magazine with Ken Griffey Jr. Breaking a baseball bat over his knee, because it killed his record-breaking season as well.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, and then I said, well, won't people want to buy the video game if they can't go and watch baseball? And Nintendo guys just went, no. Everyone in America hates baseball because they were so frustrated with the players, and the sales just went doom. And I never saw a penny more in royalties. To be honest, I think I was owed a bit more.
Yeah.
I think it did sell a bit more, but the big sort of bonanza bonus that we were expecting never happened. So that's like sad story number 1. And sad story number 2 was Nintendo wanted a sequel to this. And we were like, well, we've done such a good job. They can't not give us a sequel. You know, we're going to get number 2, we'll all make our money. And the guy at Nintendo, who was basically commissioning, he commissioned us to do this and was commissioning the sequel. He was basically auditioning lots of different studios to give him a job as he's get out of Nintendo, because he wasn't paid that much.
Right.
So he tried us, and his next one was Rare, so he gave Rare the sequel, even though we'd done such a good, and apparently the sequel's not very good, so we got sort of jipped out of the second bite of the cherry.
Yeah.
With that one.
So talking about kind of money and royalties and things like that, all the games you've done, a lot of them published by other studios. You do own the IP. Is Block the only one, or are there a couple more?
Yeah.
So how does it come about that you just lose all that? Is it just because other people publish your games you built?
Nearly everything. I've worked on, I've just been an employee of a studio, so just by default you don't own any rights. You know, you have to sort of come up with something yourself. The way we ended up with Plot was, while we still had our small studio working for Rare, we were doing all these NES games for them, but Rare on the side had come up with a coin-op machine that they designed themselves, and they designed this coin, they showed it to us, and they wanted people to make games for their coin-op machine, and they were going to put that out in arcades. So they explained the business model of coin-ops, which was, we don't pay anyone to make the game, but you'll make loads of money when it comes out in the arcade. We were like, that sounds a good deal to us. I think we were just excited by the concept of making an arcade game. You know, it was still the pinnacle of video games to us. So we said, yeah, we'll make a game for you, coin-op. And it was some weird hardware they devised called this Raspboard. And I think the only games that were being made were one by us and one by, oh God, I forgot his name. The guy who did Head Over Heels and Matchday. Yeah, he started doing one that was going to be essentially Matchday. And what happens in the coin-op world is you make your first version of the game, it gets put in a test arcade somewhere. At the end of the week, they count how many 10p's it's. If it's not enough, you change the game and you put it in another, and it just goes through that cycle until it makes enough 10p's every week that right, it's ready for release, which is quite a clever system, because that's why all arcade games are good, because the bad ones never make it out. And his Matchday game evolved over this trial and error system into the skill with prizes spot the ball game. It just sort of showed a football scene, and then you had to guess on the screen where the ball was. Right. Which is sort of a bizarre, you know, kind of game design iterative process that led to that. But the game we came up with was called Flea Pit, with his character Plot, because we played Mario and we wanted to do that sort of game as an arcade game. It never got anywhere, but because we'd sort of self-funded that, when we sold the company to Rare, we kind of kept hold of that, or we told them we were keeping hold of it. And we sort of moaned a bit, but then kind of, forget it. And then we were at Software Creations around the time of the baseball game, and we sort of went to the boss and said, look, we've got this game that we did a few years ago, it'd make a great SNES game. We had a video of it playing on the arcade machine, and we had some design documents, so we kind of did the same thing and kind of convinced the boss to take this on as a project at Creations, but it was our IP from outside the studio. So that's the reason why we've managed to keep hold of it, even though Software Creations made the SNES game.
So you moved on, you both moved on from Software Creations, and then I think was it Z2 next that you started up? From home? You're working from home?
Yeah, because we'd done Zippo games, that had worked, so we made another studio. Try again, number 2. The first game was Wetrix. That was, we had this ambitious game that we wanted to make called Vampire Circus, and in fact it was quite ambitious at the time, because it was a game with like millions of people running around and sort of physicsy things going on, and it was quite hard to do at the time, but John had a sort of programming technique that he come up with that he thought could pull it off. And we had loads of subsystems that we needed to do to make this game, and one of them was a flowing water system. So he prototyped that first. It was just supposed to be part of this bigger game. So we had just had a little diamond, and we were dropping water down and just testing the system and everything. And we were like, this is quite good, this. Mate, can we just make this into a game? Like, that'll be a bit easier for us, won't it? So we did this game, Wetrix, that was supposed to be part of a much bigger game. We were just, me and my brother in the front room, this house that I bought with the Ken Griffey deposit kind of thing. And we took it to Ocean, everyone knows Ocean. But they were in Manchester, but even though we'd always worked in Manchester, we'd never worked with Ocean. We sort of knew people there, and mingle with the same people in the pub and stuff like that, but never actually worked in Ocean or for Ocean. So we took it down to Ocean. We knew Mike Delves there, who used to work with us at Binary Design. So we went in, we had this PC demo of it, showed Mike, and he was a bit, you're showing us that? I'm like, go on, give it a try, it's all right. Came out of the meeting, oh, that didn't go very well, did it? Went to the pub, had a couple of pints, like, oh, what are we going to do? You know, it was just that was over kind of thing. Came back to my house, and there was a message, answering machine message buzzing. And it was Mike going, hey, Steve, that game you give us, the receptionist won't stop playing it. And we're like, you better come back in next week. And it was literally because the receptionist was playing it.
Yeah.
Like Mike had decided it was shit.
So the other one on screen there, interesting name, interesting console, the Gizmondo. It died in a very spectacular fashion. Was that anything to do with the demise of Z2 or not? Because you did early development work on it, but you didn't finish it.
That one is sort of nothing to do with us, even though it is a version of our game. So with Z2, it was a very, very difficult time to start a studio. It was really, the business at the time was so hostile. Every company, every publisher basically wanted every developer to go bust as soon as you'd delivered to them. Like we ended up, Ocean got bought by Infogrames, and we ended up with a 2-game deal with Infogrames, who are the worst company I've ever worked for ever. And I have PTSD thinking about Infogrames sometimes. But their business model was, say you'd agree a deal, say £500,000 for a game that they were funding you to develop. They would try and put as much of that, you'd split it into payment milestones on signing on milestone 1, 2, 3, one on final delivery of the final version and one on approval of the final version, and they try and put the biggest proportion of the money behind those two, and you try and pull, and you know, you'd meet in the middle, but you'd end up with like at least 25% of it not until delivery of the final version. And their business model, I'm convinced, was we never pay that 25% because we make sure the company goes bust and they're not around to collect. Like, the moment you delivered the final version, they don't need you anymore. But we survived 2 projects for them by the skin of our teeth, and they were horrible. Our big ambition as this little studio at the time, in this quite sort of hostile environment, was you start off, we did Wetrix for Ocean Infogrames, and we did another one, and we're like, we've got to have another project because this client is terrible, you know, and they want us to die. So you get another project on the side, like a big project and a little project. And then we got to the stage where we had 2 big projects. We had one for a company in America called New Kid Co, doing a children's game on PlayStation, and we had another contract with Rage in Liverpool. And they were both like $1 million, £1 million contracts. And this took us 5 years to get to this stage. We're like, oh, we've kind of made it as a studio now because we've got 2 big contracts. If either company goes bust, we can survive with the other one. And we had a little bit of spare capacity now for basically we could do our own game, and that was Sticky Balls. So our John was then working, funded by these other 2 big projects. He was working on this game called Sticky Balls. It was just a research design project game. And we're like, well, we could publish this ourselves, we'll make a bit of money this way, and you know, we're on our way. And what happened was, both of our 2 big clients both went bust within 3 months of each other, like completely. So we couldn't survive. We could survive one of them dying, but we couldn't survive both of them dying. And the project we were doing for New Kid Co was an ET game, and there was a re-release of ET, the movie. And they'd contracted about 8, they'd sold the video game rights, and there's about 8 studios around the world doing ET games. And another one was Warthog in Manchester. So Warthog had a bit of money, unlike us, so when they kind of were going under, we said to Warthog, let's team up and with your money, we could hire some lawyers, you know, sue them maybe and get some money back. And Warthog ended up buying us. And so in exactly the same way that we sold to Rare, our company for zero, just to keep employed. We did exactly the same with Warthog. We sold the studio to them for nothing to keep everyone. We had about 12 people to keep everybody employed.
Yeah.
So it became awkward in that they technically Warthog owned the rights to the Sticky Balls game. That was our kind of idea that we were working on. And I think we only lasted about 6 months at Warthog before they made us redundant.
Right.
So we were kind of annoyed because Sticky Balls was our thing and Warthog had it, and there was always a bit of niggle over where the rights should. We felt morally that they belonged to us, and they got bought out by the Gizmondo thing. But I wasn't there then, so I don't really know.
So terrible, hostile time to start a studio. So what do? You start another one.
Yeah. Well, this was kind of obviously the third attempt at the Z thing. But it wasn't really a studio. Basically, we just tried to be indie guys, really. So it was just me and my brother.
So why was that? Was that just because everyone else was? Were you just a bit jaded by the industry side of things?
Absolutely jaded. I think I've been in so many horrible, hostile pitch meetings. Especially when we were at Z2, we pitched a lot of games, and you'd go to people, and you'd spend a lot of time, or we did, because we liked trying to do new ideas in original games. We'd scratch our heads and try and come up with something different, or a new angle, or a new take on something. Put a pitch together, and we'd see someone like EA, and you'd pitch it to them. We're all excited about what we've done different in a genre, or what we've twisted or changed to something. And they'd take it in for a bit, and then they'd look at you and they'd go, but that's not what you normally do in these games. But they're pointing that out to you as a problem, that this is what you've got wrong in your pitch. And we're like, yeah, no, that's what we've worked hard to come up with, something that's a bit different from the norm. And they're like, that's got something that's a bit different from the norm, and we might have to pass on this. Or they do something like, we love the game, we're just going to run it past marketing. And then a week or two later, marketing have come back and said, games with this feature don't sell. And we go, what do you mean? We go, well, there's no games with this feature, so there's no sales data for how they sell, so therefore marketing's prediction is zero, because they predict it based on sales data of games with this feature. So we've been through like 3 or 4 years of this cycle of trying to pitch ideas in what felt to us like a hostile environment, and we just thought, we're just going to do it ourselves. Like, just me and John, we're self-sufficient, we'll just make a game ourselves and put it out, and
keep the rights to it.
Keep the rights, hopefully make enough money to survive.
And make the next one.
And not have to go pitching it to publishers and marketing departments.
So I'm being waved out. We are running short of time. Can we take a few questions in a minute?
Yeah, you got a couple of minutes.
Okay, I just want to quickly cover the whole BAFTA thing. You were nominated. You criticised them. You know, pay to play kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just tell us briefly about the BAFTA.
Basically, I had a big moan about the BAFTAs because I kind of think it's all a bit redundant that in movies, at least, you tend to get like Oscar movies, don't you? You tend to get movies that are good or considered good. I mean, often it's just a movie if someone cries in it. There's going to be up for an Oscar. But there is a sort of difference between a successful movie and an Oscar movie. It's sort of recognised that just being successful is not necessarily quality. Whereas in the BAFTAs, it tends to just be the biggest selling game every year is the BAFTA winner. So I had a big moan about this and just criticised the structure a little bit, and it's all just geared up to give the big publishers a big award rather than looking for the best games out there. And there was also complaining that it cost me like 300 quid to even submit a game. And a friend I had in the industry who was sort of like connected to BAFTA, he just went, right, I'm putting your game and you're nominated now.
Yeah.
But they asked me to be a judge and everything. I said no, because I still don't agree with the way it's set up. But they offered us a limo down to London and a free night out. So I said, I'm having that. I'll take the nomination because it might help us sell a few copies of the game.
Yeah.
We didn't win. Our game was nominated and for best mobile game that year, and the winner was a remake of Peggle by EA.
Right. Okay.
Which just confirmed everything that was wrong with the bankers.
Yeah.
But we had a good night out on
And a free limo ride. So we'll take a few audience questions. If people have got them, just stick your hands up. But I just wanted to ask you about one game in particular. A project of yours that was cancelled in 2011, and the title just intrigued me. I Sent My Monkey to the Moon. What was it and why was it cancelled?
It's cancelled because we ran out of money and didn't finish it. We met when we were indie. I used to go to my brother in Bury every fortnight. Just go to the pub, just chat about the game we're working on. Met a guy in the pub who made his own music. Just got to know him, and it's one of his songs. But he had this attitude. He was dead untechnological, so he wasn't like putting his music on the internet or anything. Didn't know anything about that. But he recorded music himself, proper songs, everything. And he'd burn them onto CDs, put a cover on, and then he'd go in HMV in Bury. And he'd put them in the rack, and he'd go, "I can't get you for that, it's not robbing."
Yeah.
So he was putting his own CDs in the music shop. I just thought that was genius. And we just got on with him and really liked him. And we used one of his songs on the game Naked War we did. And then he goes, "Oh, I've got my new song, lads, I sent my monkey to the moon." And we loved it. And we're like, right, we're making a game of that.
Yeah.
We never finished it, but that was it.
Audience questions?
Okay, in your Spectrum Mastertronic days, doing all those budget games, a lot of original creations, we're not all that far away from Codemasters here in Warwickshire. Was there ever commercial consideration to get a game engine done and just do loads of sequels to things like Feud and Amaru?
No. I mean, we probably should have done things like that. We didn't really think. To be fair, it was very difficult to do something like an engine on those machines because it's so primitive, and an engine is some kind of trade-off. You're going to lose a bit of performance for the flexibility to reuse it, and the machines are so underpowered that you couldn't often take that trade-off because you needed every ounce of performance you could get. But some people were smarter than us and did cleverly essentially remake the same game over and over again, which we were too stupid to attempt. And some programmers often kind of reuse little bits here and there. But as far as like Mastertronic and Codemasters, we had no connection or knowledge of them. We didn't really have anything to do with Mastertronic other than the boss of the studio did. We were just a bunch of programmers and artists in Manchester, and there was a Manchester kind of community, so we knew all the programmers and artists at Ocean, and there was a few other studios, so there was a lot of code shared. I mean, I was telling my partner over there, there's the redefined key routine that's certainly in any Ocean game, where you press it and it's like up, down, left, right, fire, and it comes down the screen like that. That was written by Mike Webb, who was one of the programmers at Ocean. He was sort of a bit of a father figure to a lot of the coders, and he would basically give that to anyone who asked. And it was sort of, there you go, I've written a bit of your game for you, use that. That got used in every binary design game, every Ocean game, and probably half the Spectrum games ever made. And Mike was just like, yeah, please use it, And I always, every time, walking around here looking at Spectrum games, I want to see the redefined keys. Bet that's Mike Webb's, redefined key routine. And that kind of thing happened a lot, and people had swapped little bits here and there. But to be honest, I don't even think we had the word engine then. Sometimes you sort of reapply it now because we talk in those terms. Oh, what was the engine we were using on that Spectrum game? But we didn't really talk in those terms at the time.
So we are running short of time. We've got some signing and selling of posters to do, but one more really quick question and really quick answer. Anyone? No? Yes, one there.
What did your kids make of you coming here and doing this?
Just a little bit bemused by it, like, what is it? What's happening, Dad? You know, yeah. I mean, they know I make video games. I've always made video games, and they know that. But yeah, just a bit bemused. That's why I took a photograph at the start. I've got to show them that look, it's real. I've not just.
You were saying earlier you've not really done this kind of thing before, but from sitting here looking at you, you've had a smile on your face most of the time. Hopefully, it will be the first of many times people will see you. So please, everyone, join me in thanking him. Give a round of applause for Steve Pickford. Right, make your way over to the corner. Thank you, Chris. Who were the two who asked a question? You can have a free bookmark.
Oh, brilliant! So it's just the name.
Yeah.
On the front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right over. Thank you very much. That was good. Really enjoyed that. That was class.
Oh, thank you. There you go. Oh,
You're a natural behind the mic, Steve.
Absolutely.
John's funnier than
You
me.
talk well, you're entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And luckily people don't mind the honour.
And you look pleased to be there. I mean,
Sorry. There's a little bit of a wee pick as well. Is that
these are
right?
35 at the frame.
Is that right?
So I'm the sort of
Nice one. Thank you. Cheers. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
There
you're
you go.
nice and balanced, isn't it?